Hi everybody, my name is Tina Duffin and I live in Melksham in Wiltshire, and I'm a friend of Bexy who runs Cherry Blossom Arts, and she's invited me to be your storyteller today for Shakespeare for children aged 7 and above, and I'm really looking forward to sharing my story with you. I love telling stories, whether it's on the stage in a play or just reading to people or maybe telling stories in a song. I love it all, and I hope you're going to enjoy the story I have for you today. So hi everyone out there tuning in to Cherry Blossom Arts. I hope you really enjoy it, and without any further delay I will tell you what today's story is. And today we're doing The Taming of the Shrew. Interesting. Now, we have quite an extensive cast list, so as usual I'll tell you who they are. So we have Baptista, a rich gentleman of Padua. We have Petruchio, a gentleman from Verona. Lucentio, a young gentleman from Pisa. Tranio, Lucentio's servant and friend. And then we have Caterina, the shrew, Baptista's daughter. Bianca, Caterina's younger sister. Hortensio, a suitor to Bianca. Gremio, another suitor to Bianca. And the scene is in Padua in Italy in the 16th century, long time ago. So here we go then. Let's start with The Taming of the Shrew. Baptista Minola was rich and respectable, but his two daughters were the talk of Padua. The younger, Bianca, was pretty, polite and modest. Her elder sister, Caterina, was equally pretty, but her character was completely different. Gossips called her the Shrew, a nickname given to any woman with a quick temper and a sharp tongue. And as a result, no suitor had asked Baptista's permission to marry Caterina. Bianca, on the other hand, had two suitors, the elderly but wealthy Gremio and young Hortensio. Caterina was jealous of Bianca, and her jealousy made her more bad-tempered than ever. One afternoon, two young men who were sightseeing in Padua happened to pass Baptista's house. One was dressed in colourful clothes. His name was Lucentio, the only son of the prosperous Pisan merchant Vincenzio. Lucentio had arrived in Padua that morning and planned to study at the university. The other young man was plainly dressed. He was Tranio, Lucentio's servant and close friend. Both men were surprised when a door flew open and Baptista burst into the street, followed by Gremio, Hortensio, Caterina and Bianca. Baptista looked flustered. "You can't make me change my mind," he said to Gremio and Hortensio. "Bianca won't marry until Caterina has a husband. I don't suppose either of you would consider marrying her." "She's too fiery for me," spluttered Gremio. "Do you fancy taking her on, Hortensio?" "I would rather wrestle with a devil," Hortensio replied. Caterina placed her hands on her hips and glared at her father. "Are you going to let them insult me?" she shrieked. "Well, I hope you're satisfied, Caterina," wailed Bianca. "Father is going to shut me away. I'll probably never marry, and it's all your fault." Well, this outburst was too much for Baptista. "Enough!" he thundered. "Caterina, Bianca, go inside." Bianca burst into tears and fled indoors. Caterina sniffed defiantly and followed her. "You see the problem, gentlemen," said Baptista. "If Bianca marries before her sister, Caterina will make my life a misery." "Are you really going to shut Bianca away, Baptista?" inquired Hortensio. I am, said Baptista. I must hire a schoolmaster and a music teacher to educate her. If either of you hear of someone suitable, please let me know. Baptista returned to his house, shaking his head and muttering to himself. Hortensio and Gremio exchanged cold glances. Then Hortensio sighed. We have been rivals for Bianca's love, he said. But perhaps we should join forces and find a husband for Caterina. Once she's married off, Bianca will be free to choose between us. That's a good idea, agreed Gremio. But what kind of fool would want to marry a shrew? The two suitors walked off together, deep in thought. Tranio laughed aloud at the scene he had just witnessed. I had no idea that Padua was so lively, he giggled. Did you notice the expression on the older sister's face? Lucentio appeared dazed. I could only see Bianca, he gushed. Her sweet beauty, her rosy lips. I must woo her. How? Asked Tranio. You heard her father. He won't let any suitors near Bianca until her sister is married. I've got it, Tranio, cried Lucentio. We're strangers here. Let's change clothes and places. You can pretend to be me and ask permission to be Bianca's suitor. Agree to anything, but make sure Baptista doesn't promise her to anyone else. I'll pretend to be a scholar, take the job as Bianca's teacher, and we'll get to know each other. And what then? Said Tranio. Lucentio grinned. And then love will find a way, he said. Hortensio returned home and found an old friend waiting at his front door. Petruchio, exclaimed Hortensio, what brings you here from Verona? I'm looking for a wealthy wife, Petruchio revealed. I don't care what she is like, as long as she is rich. Hortensio wasted no time. He told Petruchio about Caterina and Bianca. Said Petruchio, with a gleam of interest in his eyes. I know Baptista well. He is a friend of my father's, but I've never met his daughters. What is Caterina like? Hortensio pulled a face. I won't lie to you. She's the worst shrew in Padua, he confessed. It will take more than harsh words to put me off, Petruchio said. I must see her at once. Can I beg a favour of you? Pleaded Hortensio. If I put on shabby clothes, will you recommend me as a music master to teach Baptista's daughters? Then I can woo Bianca in secret while you woo Caterina. Petruchio was about to agree when Gremio appeared with Lucentio, who was wearing Tranio's clothes and carrying a pile of books. I've found a scholar to tutor Bianca, announced Gremio. More importantly, my friend Petruchio here is willing to woo Caterina and marry her, if her father gives her a large enough dowry, Hortensio said. Are you certain you want to woo Caterina? Gremio asked Petruchio. She's a wild cat. Petruchio thumped his chest. I've faced roaring lions, raging seas and booming cannon, he bragged. I'm not afraid of Caterina the shrew. Excuse me, said a voice. Does anyone know where Bianca Manola lives? Everyone turned and saw Tranio, dressed in Lucentio's finery. Lucentio winked slyly at his friend. Who are you, and what is your business with Bianca? Demanded Hortensio. I am Lucentio, and I wish to woo her, Tranio lied smoothly. Gremio turned red with rage. Bianca is my chosen love, he cried. Mine too, said Hortensio. Gentlemen, Petruchio said grandly, you seem to forget that Bianca won't marry anyone unless I marry Caterina. Your future happiness is in my hands. Not long afterwards, Baptista received Gremio, Petruchio, Tranio, who was passing himself off as Lucentio, and the two so-called scholars. After introductions had been made, Baptista sent the tutors away to begin teaching his daughters. Then Petruchio spoke boldly. "You know my father, Baptista, so you know the kind of fellow I am. If I marry your daughter Caterina, what will her dowry be?" 20,000 crowns and half my lands when I die, Baptista replied. "Excellent," said Petruchio. "The matter is settled." Baptista smiled ruefully. "Well, getting Caterina to agree to the marriage might be more difficult than you think," he warned. "I'll be more than a match for her," Petruchio assured him. "I am the breeze that will cool her hot temper." "Can I discuss Bianca's future with you now, Baptista?" ventured Gremio. "Oh, and I," broke in Tranio. "I'm a newcomer to Padua, but I have already heard of Bianca's grace and beauty, and I ask your permission to woo her. Once Caterina is married." And before Baptista could answer, Hortensio staggered in, with his head sticking out from a broken lute. "What happened to you?" gasped Baptista. "Caterina," Hortensio groaned. "When I told her she played badly, she called me a twangling jack and smashed this lute over my head." And he wandered off unsteadily. "Whew, she's a lively one," chuckled Petruchio. "I'm longing to meet her." "I'll send her to you," said Baptista. "These two gentlemen and I have things to talk over." And he led Gremio and Tranio into his study. Once he was alone, Petruchio paced up and down. "I must confuse her with my wooing," he told himself. "Whatever she says, I'll say the opposite, until she's so mixed up that she won't even notice I've married her." Caterina appeared, and for a moment Petruchio was struck dumb by her beauty, but he quickly recovered. "Good day, Kate," he said. Caterina scowled. "No one calls me Kate," she snapped. "I'm going to," insisted Petruchio. "You are the prettiest Kate in the world. I shall marry you and make you my Kate." "Are you a madman who has wandered in off the street?" Caterina fumed. "No, I'm a gentleman of Verona," declared Petruchio. "We'll soon see if you're a gentleman," snarled Caterina, and she slapped Petruchio's face. Petruchio grabbed her by the wrists and spoke softly to her while she struggled to escape. "I was told you had a bad temper, but you're as sweet as springtime flowers," he cooed. Caterina broke free. "You are mad," she panted. Baptista stepped out of his study. "How are you two lovebirds?" he asked. "Do you really want me to marry this lunatic?" screeched Caterina. "What sort of father are you?" "People are wrong to call your daughter a shrew, Baptista," Petruchio said. "They don't know the real Kate, the way I do. We've agreed to be married next Sunday." "We haven't agreed anything," yelped Caterina. "I must go to Venice for my wedding outfit," Petruchio said. "Until Sunday, Kate." And he blew her a kiss and left. Caterina stormed off in the opposite direction. Baptista returned to his study, where Gremio and Tranio were waiting. "Bianca's happiness and comfort concern me most," he said to them. "For that reason, if you can prove your father is as wealthy as you claim, Lucentio, Bianca will be your wife." Tranio bowed. "Thank you, sir," he said. On the following Sunday, Petruchio continued with his scheme to cure Caterina of her shrewishness by behaving more outrageously than he ever had. He arrived late at the church, riding a scrawny old horse and wearing a hat with a ridiculously long feather attached. His jerkin was patched, his breeches were threadbare, one boot was black, the other brown, and his sword was bent and rusty. During the ceremony, Petruchio bawled out his vows. The priest was so startled that he dropped his book, and when he stooped to pick it up, Petruchio boxed his ears before insisting on a goblet of wine, which he spilled over the priest's cassock. Finally, he kissed his new wife with a smacking sound that echoed through the church. The moment the ceremony was over, Petruchio insisted that he and Caterina should journey to his house in Verona. By the time they got there, Caterina was tired and hungry, but when Petruchio's servants brought food, he said that she could not eat it because it was burnt. When they went to bed, he rearranged all the sheets and pillows and was continually getting up to open and close the windows, first saying that it was too cold for Caterina and then that it was too stuffy. In the end, Caterina was too weary to complain. The next morning, in the garden of Baptista's house, Tranio and Hortensio hid behind a shrub and spied on Lucentio and Bianca, who were seated side by side on a bench. "Look at how they're holding hands," whispered Hortensio. "See the way they're gazing into each other's eyes. They're madly in love. Fancy Bianca falling for a penniless scholar." "She hasn't," Tranio confessed. "He is Lucentio. I'm his servant Tranio. We swapped places so that he could woo Bianca, and he has won her," sighed Hortensio. "Oh well, actually, I've been pretending too. I'm not a music master, but Hortensio a gentleman of Padua. Since Bianca has given her heart to another, I'll be off. I know a pretty young widow who would marry me in the twinkle of an eye if I asked her." Hortensio was proved right, and within a few days he married the widow, and Bianca married Lucentio, the real Lucentio. A week later, Petruchio and Caterina visited Padua to attend the party that Baptista threw to celebrate his daughter's marriages. Though Caterina seemed less stubborn than she had been, Petruchio decided to annoy her, to test how well she could keep her temper. When they were almost at Baptista's house, he waved at the sky. "Oh, how brightly the moon shines," he cried. "The moon?" said Caterina, frowning. "That's the sun." "Well, I say it's the moon," Petruchio declared. "And I know it's the sun," retorted Caterina. "So, you still insist on contradicting me, eh?" Petruchio said. "Then let's go back to Verona. We can't stay at your father's house if we're going to bicker all the time." Caterina hung her head. She was weary, hungry, thirsty, and had been looking forward to being reunited with her family. "All right, Petruchio," she said meekly. "If you say it's the moon, then so it is." "Ha! But I say it's the sun," announced Petruchio. "It can be a candle if you like," groaned Caterina. "I don't want to argue any more." Petruchio beamed. "You have no idea how sweet those words sound," he said. As well as Bianca, Lucentio, Petruchio and Caterina, Hortensio and his bride were among the guests at the party. Towards the end of the evening, the three new husbands sat drinking together. Wine loosened their tongues and their wits, and they had a disagreement over whose wife was the most obedient. "Let's settle the matter by each sending a servant to ask our wives to meet us here. The first wife to turn up will be the most obedient." "Care to bet 20 crowns on the outcome?" asked Lucentio. "My Caterina is worth more than a bet of 20 crowns, Petruchio protested. 100 then?" suggested Lucentio. "Done," agreed Petruchio. "You go first." Lucentio beckoned to a servant. "Tell your mistress I want to see her right away," he said. The servant promptly left the room and soon returned. "My mistress says she's too busy to come to you now, sir," he told Lucentio. Petruchio and Hortensio sniggered at Lucentio's blush. "Go and ask my wife to come to me," Hortensio instructed the servant. Once again the servant left, and once again he returned alone. "Your wife says she is in no mood for jokes, sir," he informed Hortensio. "If you wish to see her, you must go to her." It was Hortensio's turn to blush. "Tell Mistress Caterina I wish to see her," Petruchio said to the servant. For the third time the servant left, and before long Caterina appeared. "You sent for me, husband?" she said. "Yes," replied Petruchio. "Find Bianca and Hortensio's wife, and fetch them here. Caterina did as she was told, and within a minute all 3 wives stood before their husbands. "Now, Kate," Petruchio said, "tell these 2 headstrong women what you have learned about husbands and wives." "Our husbands keep us warm and safe and work hard to feed and clothe us," began Caterina, "so we should love, honour and obey them, not scold them. We are softer and weaker than men, and it's foolish to squabble with them. Husbands and wives should take delight in one another." Petruchio laughed and held out his hand to Caterina. "No one will ever call you a shrew again," he promised. "Come here and kiss me, Kate." The end. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Just a little reminder that the Shakespeare for children aged 7 and above will be online every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday at 5 p.m. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed it. See you again another time.